No one else is supposed to understand your calling. It wasn't a conference call. Hey everyone, it's Tuesday's episode of the Toya Talks Podcast, delivered to you by me, Toya Washington. Welcome to this week's episode called Diplomacy Olympics. So, I don't even know where to start, honey. It's been a long week, last week, because as you know, an episode every Tuesday, a brand new one gets released. So last week was really busy. Like on the weekend, I was so exhausted. And I definitely feel like, and I've said this before, working remotely, working from home, it does mean that you work longer hours. And sometimes just by default, right? And I definitely feel that way. And honestly, I swear to God, I need like cameras following me. Like following my life at work, because it really be a reality show. My office is a reality show, and we're not even in a physical office. Can you imagine? You know, like some of the places we work, like you sometimes you think to yourself, if we were in the office, would you really be moving like this? Because I really doubt it. I highly doubt it. And I can't even put it down to the frustrations of being on lockdown. I just think people's madness are surfacing quicker because we are in a very uniquely different situation, and people just do not know how to move, don't know how to act, don't know how to navigate. Last week's episode of the Toya Talks podcast, Poverty Mindset, you guys really loved that episode. I mean, to be honest, I do get a lot of love for the podcast episodes, but last week's episode was different. And I definitely think it's because it's one of those episodes that really shakes the foundation of your thinking. It really, taps into some uncomfortable, preconceived ideas we have as Black women about luxury, about the mindset of poverty that we have allowed to set into our minds, and how it's limited us from seeing outside of a poverty mindset that society seeks to limit and convince Black women that there's a ceiling to success, or a ceiling to be able to access luxury. So if you haven't already listened to the Poverty Mindset episode, make sure you go and have a listen. And I'm still getting reviews now, like from people like DMing me. And there was an unprecedented amount of emails that came into the hello@toyatalks.com mailbox. And literally between myself and my PA, like we've been trying to get through all of them. Then I get this email from a young lady. So during the Poverty Mindset episode, there's a young lady who wrote into me, and basically Human Resources had given her gross misconduct and then reduced it to a final written warning. And she had basically been asked to work in a different department. It's a government organisation, and she searched her name, and then it flagged it up to IT, and they considered that to be reprimand. Well, she was reprimanded, and then she was told anyway that it wouldn't affect her applying for like internal roles. She applied for an internal role, a more senior role, for a 12-month period where she would be on loan to another government organisation, and Human Resources basically blocked her from doing it. And she was actually offered the role, and Human Resources blocked her. Yeah, you heard me, blocked her. Now, I had sent her an email asking her a couple of questions, and I shared that with you in last week's episode, and I hadn't heard anything from her. God's so kind, she heard the episode last week, and she was searching her mailbox as she wrote to me. She says, Toya, I saw your email in my junk box, and she'd already spoken to Human Resources before she had seen my email. Now, guys, girls, men and women, girls and boys, she sent me an email of what happened, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to share it with you now, actually, before we get into the meat of this episode, because her response is of somebody who listens to the Toya Talks podcast, accesses the platform, accesses the masterclasses, and really embodies everything that I talk about here on the Toya Talks podcast. For me to be able to deliver this podcast, it is purely from a place of experience. I am the subject matter expert in navigating the world of work, and I have attained success in the workplace, and it hasn't been easy. I have gone through so much, and there is so many things that I haven't shared on here that during the course of our journey on this podcast, I'm definitely going to share. But the level of excitement, if you was on my Instagram, in my Instagram stories, because I couldn't contain my joy and excitement. And I'm just so proud of this black woman, because as a black queen that we are, she recognized where she was being shortchanged by this organization, where they were penalizing her. And I'm going to read what she wrote to me. Now, remembering that she didn't get to hear from me, she wanted my advice, it'd gone into a junk mailbox, and she had to go and deal with human resources. So I'm going to read what she wrote to me. Hi Toya, you are honestly a godsend in so many ways. May God bless you and enlarge your coast. Apologies, your reply had gone to my spam folder. I've just listened to today's episode of the Toya Talks podcast and was shocked to hear that you had responded and I'd missed it. Regarding the HR meeting I had last week, Thursday, and I was the one who scheduled it. It was my line manager who initially informed me that HR would not permit me to move, and apparently they said that I should be grateful it was only a written warning. I was given the right to appeal when I got the written warning, but I wasn't too fussed as I reasoned it would only be on my record for a year and there was no real punishment attached to it. When I wrote to you, I was totally downtrodden, just so emotionally and mentally exhausted that I ended up going to sleep at 7 p.m, laugh out loud. The next morning, I woke up angry, very angry. There was few things that came to my mind. 1, nobody can hinder my career progress. 2, thank God for my burn folder and Toya's podcast. And 3, this new role is mine. In my mind, I pretended as though you had responded to my email and that I'd seen it, and asked myself, what would Toya say? Ironically, your famous question, what is your desired outcome, came to my mind. I knew my desired outcome was to take up that loan opportunity. So when she says loan opportunity, she means being like loaned to another government department, effectively being seconded. My manager sent me the contact details of the HR personnel who told her I wasn't eligible to go on loan. My intention was to try and understand their rationale. Ahead of the meeting with Human Resources, I made a list of all the relevant policies and ensured I was fully prepared. Give it to them, girl. Right from the onset, the Human Resources guy was defensive. It baffled me because I never even come across him before. Maybe my blackness offended him. He's Asian. He kept saying they won't change policy for me and that I'm intentionally misinterpreting HR policy. He wouldn't let me speak, wouldn't answer any of my questions, and was constantly interrupting me. So, what did I do? I cut the meeting short, followed it up with an email, as you've always encouraged us to do. I remembered some of the episodes where the Toya Talks podcast episodes where you had told people exactly how to phrase emails and the importance of CCing those higher up. I had a feeling he and my manager were in cahoots, so I cut her out of the loop and only CC'd in my director, which is the Human Resources Manager's director too. I was not playing any games. I told him the policy he was trying to enforce did not apply to me and reiterated my questions. I even put permissions on the email so he wouldn't forward it on or copy it. His only option was to respond. Even my director jumped in and asked him to answer my questions. My director also questioned the legitimacy of the policy he was trying to apply to me. This fool, the HR guy, responded to my director, ignoring my questions. The long and short of it is that after 2 days of back and forth, he eventually conceded. He realized he was in the wrong, but didn't apologize or even acknowledge that he was wrong. I recently found out that most people who were redeployed were given a written warning for the same reasons as me. So you can imagine how many people he stopped from progressing because he misapplies HR policy. Not only is he incompetent, but he's also a nincompoop. This experience has taught me so many lessons, including the importance of a burn folder. Having the confidence to call people out when you believe you've been wronged and covering your own back. My manager could have had my back, but she chose not to. I'm glad I had your podcast to prepare me for situations like this. Toya, even though I missed your email, you've still helped me through your podcast and your words of wisdom that I've soaked up. Just know for a fact that I'll be one of the first to buy a ticket to your next live show, and that I'll be one of the first to pre-order your book when it comes. Please keep doing what you're doing across the Toya Talks platform. I'm praying for your continued success in your career, expansion of your platform, favor from unknown sources, and longevity in your upcoming marriage. You've found your purpose and you're walking in it. May you prosper. Thanks once again. I appreciate all you do. Kind regards. Hey! Winner, 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 winner. We black women are winners. Winner, 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 winner. We black women are winners. Come again now. Winner, 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 winner. Hey, we black women are winners. One last time. Winner, 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 winner. We black women are winners. Let me tell you something. I feel so proud of this black queen. Let me even start it. Let's start from the beginning. Let's dissect it. Remember, we haven't even really started this podcast, but I had to start this podcast with this opening email from this black queen. And I'll tell you the reason why. I can give you the tools. I can tell you how. I can use my experiences to demonstrate to you how I did it. But you guys have to choose how and when you apply the tools that I provide for you through this platform. Ultimately, there are going to be situations that you're in. And sometimes you listen to podcasts, you have to say, okay, what would Toya do? What would Toya say? This is a podcast that you've devoted time to listen to. Okay, I'm in this situation. And there are going to be times when, like this situation here, she wrote to me. I responded, but she didn't realize, number one, that I responded because the email went into her spam. So she took every learning lesson and she applied it and she got the result that she wanted. i.e., this black queen has got the promotion that she wants. She got it. Let's start this. She needed to interpret the policy and she wanted to hold human resources to account, and she did the right thing. She was able to acknowledge and see that her human resources manager, so HR, and her line manager were in cahoots to stop her from progressing. So for her, she was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go above my manager's head here, because if I know that my manager is blocking me, my manager's manager is the next person up. So I'll go to HR and I'm going to cut my manager out and put my manager's manager on CC. And what happens is this. Let me tell you something. You see, when you have policies, especially, and I say this all the time, knowing full well that I've got friends who are in human resources, but each and every one of them will agree with me. Some people sitting in HR, number one, have never seen some of them policies that they're seeking to apply to employees. Talk less of the fact that some of them don't even understand the policy. They're applying it left, right, and centre. There are ways in challenging policies within your organisation without being aggressive in the manner in which you do it. Listen, when we say aggressive in the manner, some people send me emails here through in my mailbox, and then you tell me that you have problem with your manager who you send an email. Of course, if you're talking to me in a way that is deplorable, I can only imagine how some of you then respond in your workplace that gets you into a problem. But when you stick to the facts, you remove emotion out of it and you ask the question, how, why, when, who, and you hold people to account. Listen, the truth is the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter how you massage it or which way you do it. When you ask somebody a direct question that has a clear answer, no matter how much they try to avoid it, they'll have to answer it. They will have to. You can't apply a policy that is not applicable to this person, but you're seeking to apply it and then accusing somebody of misinterpreting. Okay, if I'm misinterpreting it, you interpret it in writing the way it should be said. This guy didn't want to do it. No problem. I think for me, there was a few profound things here. The first is, it is really hard to know that you are deserving of something and going through a process and not getting it. It is defeating. It will knock your confidence. And I love the fact that she said that she went to bed and she woke up angry. That anger inside of her is reminding her, you're taking this lying down. You were lying down from 7 p.m. You're taking this lying down. Nobody can hinder your career progress. I've told you guys, season 1 of the Toya Talks podcast, I said your manager is not the key to your success. No. And this young lady has applied it. She's recognized that her manager, who is blocking her from progressing because of this written warning, that was, to be honest, if you want me to go into it properly, she should never have been given that written warning. It took less of a final written warning. So I'm very happy they took it from a gross misconduct, because that in itself. But one thing is, and it is acknowledged in this young lady's email, is that she says that she should have challenged it, but she didn't because she thought it will be there for a year and da-da-da. I'm going to say this to you now. Do not allow anyone to put something on your file and think, oh, it will be moved in a year. Because if we are acknowledging the incompetence of human resources, why do you think they're competent enough to remove something, a marker on your name after a year? Why? I don't know about some of you lot, but a lot of the places I've worked, human resources is like a revolving door. And some of it is a revolving door of ignorance. So why are you trusting these people to then remove this? So you trust these people to provide human resources, but you know they're incompetent. You can't then trust them to give you a written warning only for them to take it off in a year. God was merciful to this Black Queen, because she managed to use the teachings of the Toya Talks podcast to be able to understand, number one, what she's trying to achieve here. I ask the question all the time, what is your desired outcome? Because when I ask that question, it will give me an idea. It will influence the advice I give you on how you're going to navigate this situation. If you tell me my desired outcome is to get a formal written warning against my manager, it's going to be a very different way I'm going to advise you than if you say to me, my desired outcome is for my manager to acknowledge da-da-da-da-da. Do you understand? So she asked herself the very question that I would ask her, and I did ask her, what is your outcome? And that informed the way this Black Queen navigated. One thing I learned here as well, I learned a couple of things here, but she wanted to make sure that HR manager couldn't forward on her email. So she put a rule. So in Outlook, you can put rules on the email that you're sending. So she made it impossible for him to find alliances with her manager. So she gave him no choice but to respond. Now, when the director got involved, at that point she won. Because for the director to get involved, that means he's also questioning the very same policy that this Black Queen is questioning. I am so proud and I'm so happy for this woman, because she could have taken this lying down, and what would have happened? It would have cheated her out of a promotion that she was legitimately entitled to. If you treat your career like a project, you will have an intention, you will have a plan, and you will have a desired outcome. And you should be ticking it off as you're achieving it. Ticking it off. And this Black woman dealt with her career like it was a project. And part of that project, she had to mitigate risk. The risk of not being able to take up a position that she legitimately should have been given without a problem. But what they did, the bit that made me angry, if you remember in the last episode, Poverty Mindset, when I read out this Black woman's dilemma, her manager said to her, when she said to her manager, that she was applying for this role, her manager didn't even tell her anything about the written warning hindering this woman's opportunity to take up this role. So it's like she's trying to teach her a lesson. And she colluded with human resources to teach our Black sister a lesson. And God said, no, vengeance is his. Not only has she challenged human resources on their policy, She's also made it clear that nobody, and I mean nobody, is in charge of the success of her career other than her. If she took this lying down, every opportunity that could have come her way, she would have passed it up. Because as far as she's concerned, the policy says that she cannot take up any role, promotion or anything while she has a formal written warning on her file. But the policy that governs that was wrong. Let this be a lesson to everybody. If you really want something, you can't take things lying down. There's a way to navigate. There's a way to address things. And don't get me wrong, I know sometimes it's difficult, and I know sometimes you don't always get what you want. But if you apply logic, if you know how to talk to these, if you know how to speak the language of the Oyibo, I promise you, you see me, I get everything I want. I do my due diligence. This woman did her due diligence. She read the policy. She knew it was wrongly applied. She wanted to get a secondary opinion. The director. I guarantee you they're going to change that policy. And I'm telling you, if they don't change that policy, somebody else will make an example of them again. If you are listening, beautiful Black Queen, I want you to know that the way you have used all the teachings and learnings from the Toya Talks podcast and applied it to your situation is the reason why I do Toya Talks podcast, because I'm not always going to be there. And I have to be able to create all of these things for you guys so that you can apply it in your own situations. And this is how our young Black Queen has done it. And I am so proud of you. Congratulations on your new position. And can we just say higher level, higher. This is the beginning of something so great for you. And you are more than deserving of this opportunity. So well done. So guys, I was very excited to read it. I was very excited. I couldn't get myself together. Yeah? You can't come and take Black women for heed yet. No, it's not going to happen. Not on my watch. So guys, before we move on to all the other dilemmas that have hit the Toya Talks inbox, I need to even share my own dilemma story. This one wasn't dilemma because I had the solution in the moment. So, if you recall 5 episodes ago, Dear Black Women, competency is a form of currency. I told you about this man I work with, or mouse. Actually, he's not a mouse, he's a rat. Gary. I'm not going to go into detail again about Gary. If you listen to that episode, you will hear about Gary. Gary is just mad. He tried to kind of get rude. Not kind of get rude. He got rude. He sent me all types of messages. The man is mad. At work. Oh yeah. Gary tried to set me up last week. Yes, you heard me. Just pause here. Go and get a copper. Because you're going to need it. You know one thing with Gary? He's not doing anything I don't expect from him. Because I've done my due diligence. I've observed him. I've been monitoring him. And he has a very... You see, he has this type of spirit. He's so fixated in his commitment to disliking, and I would say resenting, women. And then it is compounded by the fact that I'm a Black woman. I'm even coming. Gary. Oh. And you know the mad thing about Gary? Anytime he comes on Zoom, Teams, whatever it is, if we're having it like a meeting, or if it's on Skype, he always looks dirty. You know, like he looks like he hasn't had a wash, and you need to just dip him in hot water with Dettol. You know that type of thing. You know, like that smell on the bus. I haven't been on the bus for a long time, but I will never forget the smell. You know when it's raining outside and then you get on a bus and that smell that comes from the chair. He looks like he smells. He looks like he stinks. If stink or smell had a picture, it would be Gary. So I already know that he doesn't have a clean soul because his body ain't clean either. Yeah, you heard me. Anyway, let me tell you. So on Monday, as I normally do, I log on to my laptop and I I always start looking at my emails from the bottom up. It depends what's happening. If it's a Monday, it's bottom up. If it's midweek, it's up down. I know that sounds weird. Again, I need to tell you, I need to do a podcast on how I organise myself, especially with my dyslexia and stuff, but that's another episode. Listen. So, I was in the office, so I was going reading not in the office, but in my house office. And I was reading this emails and everything. So, around 4 p.m, I get an email from Gary. And he said, for your information below, I think this relates to your contract. As I was reading these emails were from Saturday. And there was a very serious escalation on my contract. When I say serious, I mean critical number. We call it, like, in escalations, number 1 is critical. So as I'm reading these emails, I'm thinking, Gary, it's 4 p.m. You didn't come across these emails just now. And you work Saturdays because you're sad like that. You work Saturdays and Sundays because this one, he's trying to be a martyr. Anyway, that one is for another day. So he deliberately did this. And the thing is, yeah, because he didn't forward the email till 4, the escalation was going on through the day. But I didn't know. And I am the lead commercial contract consultant. I'm the lead. So I should have known this. And because it's such a critical escalation, my boss, Deborah, should have been notified almost immediately, especially because people at her director level would have flagged it to her. So remember I told you there was a lady that started in my team, and actually she works alongside me with one of these contracts. Her name is Caroline. Caroline sent me a Teams message and she was like, Toya, I cannot believe what I'm just reading from Gary. And I called her on Teams and she was furious. She said, Toya, this is a setup. She was really angry. And I think when I think about why she was angry, I know she was angry because as a fellow black woman, she knows what it is. I don't have to explain it to her. Number 2, the type of escalation it's not one of them things you leave till 4 p.m. And number 3, it was very obviously a setup. But when Caroline is getting angry and everything, I'm quiet. And I think me being quiet was making her annoyed. I don't know. I just wasn't there. And I said to her, listen, when you do things with a clean heart and a clean mind, things will work out. I said, Gary has been his own undoing. He's told on himself. I said, okay, let's assume he didn't work on the weekend. Let's just assume. He read this email. And we know he did because he had to determine that it was for me. Or it should have been sent to me. He forwarded at 4 p.m. At the very least, he should have escalated it to my boss. Because at the end of the day, it's very clear that this is business critical 1. I said to Caroline, leave this one to me. I sat there for like 10 minutes because I was really pissed. But I'm not going to share my anger and annoyance with anybody. No, I need to calm down. So I got up, went to the bathroom, went to make something to eat. I called my boss. Because I don't call Deborah often, she always answers my call. And anytime she missed my call, Deborah calls me back. I called her. Deborah said, Toya, how are you? Oh my God, Toya, unless you call me, I never hear from you. How are you doing? I said, I'm fine. I said, Deborah, I have an escalation and it's business critical. And it's imperative that I tell you about it. She said, what is it? I told her. She goes, oh my God, when did this happen? I said, Saturday. She said, Saturday? She goes, but Toya, it's almost 4:30. Why are we? I said, well, I'm going to forward you the email with the escalation. When she read it, she said, hang on a minute. So Gary was copied into this email, not you. That doesn't make sense because everybody in the business knows that you are the commercial contract manager lead. So obviously, and this is my boss saying this, obviously Gary and there's another member of staff, they're in cahoots because that one that is in cahoots with Gary knows very well that I manage this contract. But obviously, White Men Club, they've come together now, innit? No problem. My boss says, Toya, what would you like me to do? I said, well, Deborah, first and foremost, you have to make sure that you and your fellow directors are on one accord, because they think that you know about this and you don't. So you need to deal with the comms on that level. I said, but from where I'm sitting as the lead on this contract, it is absolutely unacceptable that this would come to me 4 p.m. on a Monday. And Gary knows more than most how critical this contract is, and more than most because he's been trying everything to get this contract. You recently had to have a conversation with him and tell him to mind his business because it was interfering in this contract, creating all types of problems. I said, I'm not here for the politics. I'm here to deliver. Before I could finish, and she said to me, and you deliver every time. I said, and thirdly, I think that you need to have a conversation with Gary because clearly there's something going on with him. Maybe he needs additional training so that he can make a decision on what is critical and what is not. Because for me, that's a fundamental, basic understanding in commercial contract management. And he maybe doesn't have that understanding. She says, Toya, you're very, very diplomatic. I said, no, I'm telling the truth. She goes, no, you're very diplomatic because what Gary has done here, to be honest with you, she goes, is gross misconduct. It is gross misconduct. However, when I asked you what you want me to do, you could have very well said a number of things because I know what I would have said. But actually, your diplomacy and your ability to actually remain professional has taught me something. She goes, because I don't have the level of professionalism you do. She said, leave it with me. Now, let me tell you something, everybody. I used a lot of inflammatory language. I said to her, business critical. I used all these words and I let her know that it's more than just me and the manager of this contract. It's her on a director level. She should be on the loop. And the moment she's not in the loop, she's then seen as somebody who is not on job. If you're not on job, you'll be a scapegoat. My boss knows this. So 48 hours later, my boss puts a meeting in my diary. I joined the meeting. Deborah said, Toya, first of all, I want you to understand that not only do we value you in this team, but what happened in that contract on the weekend, to be honest, is irreprehensible. And she goes, when I spoke to so-and-so director, they thought I knew about it and that I was just not responding to emails, not knowing that I knew nothing about this. So you were very, very right in highlighting that to me. I have had a conversation with Gary that if this happens again, I am removing him from this project. And in turn, I'll remove him from this organisation. She said, Toya, is there anything you want to add? In my head, I'd asked her, have you eaten today? But I didn't say that. I said, no, nothing else to add. I just want to thank you for your support and your continued contribution in making sure that this contract is delivered according to the contractual requirements. And I very much appreciate your influence and your support. And I hope that I can count on your support moving forward. She said, without a doubt. I ended it. Listen, let me tell you something, yeah? If I said to her, when Gary moved off this project, he would be gone in a shot. But I don't want that on my hands. Gary will be his own undoing. And all these little things that he's doing that are motivated by pure emotion, spite and jealousy will be his own undoing. He is going to have himself to blame for not being in a job, not me. But what you're never going to do is think you're smart enough to set me up. Me? You want to set me up? You're mad. You're actually mad. Listen, you know at work, if I mess up, I hold up my hands. I say, I have wronged. I haven't done this properly. I haven't done this. And you get more respect for it than trying to cover up. If you are going to navigate the world of work, it's not going to be by crushing other people. Because even if you crush them to get there, somebody will crush you to get to your position. I have never had to step on anybody to attain any form of success in my career. Every success that I have had in my career has come from good, clean navigating. Facts. And that's on period. The problem that Gary has is he underestimates me every time. Just when you think that the penny's dropped, his racism and his inherent proximity to racism and discrimination because he has proximity to it. Because most of the black women in different parts of the team he's had problems with, but he doesn't have problems with the white women. He doesn't have problems with the white men. He doesn't have problems even with the black men. It's the black women. You've got a fucking problem. And I definitely feel as though with Gary, you see, one thing with him is his false sense of security is the fact that, you know, he's done a law degree. And let me tell you something. Any degree, no matter where you do it, no matter the subject, the fact is it's an accomplishment. But I keep telling you guys, having a degree is not enough. Even if you have to do further education by studying around your topic or around your subject area, you still need to add to it. You don't have to necessarily do a master's to add to it, but you have to. And as black women, you and I both know that we have to do over and beyond what the average does to be even able to compete with some of these people. So it is to be expected that the average successful black woman has studied, worked hard, devoted, sacrificed to be where she is. But Gary continues to underestimate what that actually means for me to be able to sit here in a team that he is in. I have studied my ass off. Those who followed me on Snapchat, they know. I've studied my ass off. Those who listen to the Toya Talks podcast, you know the sacrifices. You know what I've had to do. Nobody gave me anything. I literally worked for every single thing. But Gary's never had to work for anything. I genuinely believe that this guy's just coasted on his 1 degree. He's just coasted. White privilege, law degree. That one is a recipe for PhD, Abby. Yeah. And he genuinely thinks I'm stupid. And I'm not here to prove that I'm not stupid. I really do not give a fuck about Gary. I need to be careful when it comes to Gary, 110%. But I don't give a fuck about him. And let me tell you something. This is not going to be the last time he tries to set me up. But you know what? It is going to be the very last time he tries me. Because the next time he tries me, I'll be putting in a meeting with me, him, and Deborah. And he will table whatever his problem is. And Deborah will have to, at that point, decide how she manages him. Because she doesn't manage him. She doesn't. I would love to be a fly on the wall on those conversations. And I'll tell you why she doesn't manage him. Because he does not respect black women. And Deborah is mixed race. He doesn't respect black women. He doesn't. He doesn't. Whenever Deborah speaks in a meeting, if you see the way this man does his face, if you hear the way he undermines her, and she needs to be careful. And I'll tell you the reason why. Gary sets her up every single time. Every time. There's things that happen on certain calls that she's not privy to. And I'm thinking, is somebody going to tell Deborah about this? Because Deborah needs to hear this. Is this going to be flagged? And a lot of the risks sit in his area. And he doesn't tell her. An example of this is we had a recent team meeting and we were flagging risks and somebody was taking minutes in it. Deborah had to take a call. So she said, guys, I'm going to put myself on pause. I'm taking a call. I will come back. Gary flagged such a significant risk. Me, I turned my camera on because I wanted people to know that me, I'm present here. I turn it on. Do you know the admin person who doesn't have proximity to these contracts turned to Gary and said, Gary, have you told Deborah this? This is very significant. He said, As soon as Deborah came back on the call, this young girl said, excuse me, Deborah, do you know that Gary has this da-da-da-da-da? She said, oh, I didn't know. She said, yeah. Deborah, you need to do this because of da-da-da. Deborah said, oh, thank you so much. Gary was sitting there. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. But all this plotting and scheming that he's doing, those plots and those schemes will bury him in this on this contract. Go and watch it and say, I told you. Diplomacy and navigating the world of work works hand in hand. Because you've got to also remember, in as much as I very well wanted to tell Deborah, get him off this project, I know that doesn't make me look good. And when I say look good, I want to be seen as fair, straight talking as I am, and more importantly, professional. if I pick up that phone, the level of respect Deborah has for me is because I have worked to make sure that I've cultivated a situation where there is respect. She knows that I don't know everything, and I hold my hands up and say, I don't know this. But she also knows that I deliver. She also knows I'm a safe pair of hands, and more importantly, she knows that I will remain professional to the last conversation. And that to me is more than enough to solidify myself in my team. That's credit. That's the type of credit that you have with somebody that cannot be quantified. I'm not like Gary, talking about this person, this one, and then they will all talk and realize that Gary has been speaking about them. I haven't got time for it. Gary will bash my boss. Listen, before Gary moved mad, the way he used to talk about my boss during team meetings, maybe she's not there. And you'll just sit there thinking to yourself, are you trying to find yourself at the job center? He's mad. But again, that white privilege gives him this confidence. He feels like he can get away with shit. But his time is numbered on this project. Believe me when I told you. Do you remember that guy I told you guys about before? The one that was moving mad? What happened? His contract was terminated. This one, not only is his contract going to be terminated, he will just log on. He won't be able to log on anymore. It says, the system has rejected your ID. Please contact. That's what's going to happen. Watch. Also, in my organization, let me tell you. Do you remember there was an episode I told you that there was a black woman that I was working with, and she works in finance, and she was quite hostile. You know, she's just, I don't know. I think that she's not been treated very well on the project, so she just has a very defensive nature. That notwithstanding, my first conversation with her, she questioned why I shaved my hair off because I looked like a cancer patient. So she said, do you remember I told you guys? She said it to me. And it took everything inside of me to not retaliate and not kind of meet her where she was. I was not only professional, but more importantly, I let her know that my head is my crown. And I don't really care what anybody thinks. This woman, we're going to call her Mavis. Mavis, yeah. I've observed her anyway. Mavis is very defensive, and I understand why. Because this organization is very heavily white dominated. White male dominated boys club. Imagine being in an organization that has a remote boys club. It is difficult. You know, I've shared on here some of the things that I've had to deal with in navigating my contract. It's not a joke. And I'm senior. I'm a lead. So the higher you go, obviously you're going to meet, you know, people like that. I have an episode, the higher the level, the higher the devil. So it's not like, oh, I'm navigating and there's no, obviously I just know how to navigate properly. But this Mavis I think she wears her heart on her sleeve, and she's too quick to send emails. Like, she doesn't have that ability to pause in her emotion before she sends it. And I am not in a position whereby I can give her advice, because not all skin folk is kinfolk. And she's already showed me who she is. When you're telling me, a black woman, you understand what a crown means, and you're sitting there telling me, somebody you've never spoken to before, you're sitting there telling me, why did I shave my hair off? I look like a cancer patient, or I'll look like a cancer patient to them. I have in my family lost people to cancer. Like, do you know what that did? Her statement was even triggering. It was insulting that it came from a fellow black woman, and even more annoying that I couldn't even check her the way I wanted to check her. Anyway, I still had to work with this woman, because whether I like it or not, she works in finance. And if you know anything about commercial contract management, there is a finance element to my contract, which is led by a finance business partner. So I said to myself, not every battle must I attend. And this particular battle, I said, no, this woman will keep. So every month we have a call for 20 minutes. We go over the financials of my contract, anything that she needs from me from a financial aspect of my contract, I provide to her. And I keep a very professional and cordial relationship. You know, she like, I'm pleasant, do you understand? But I have it at the back of my mind that not all skin folk is kinfolk. And we've spoken about this before on previous episodes of the Toya Talks podcast. One particular day last week, Mavis called me on Teams. Now, one thing about Mavis, she don't just call me. She usually puts time in my diary. And I missed it because I was on my work phone. She then forwarded me an email. And the email never made no sense to me. I ended up calling Mavis back. I said, Mavis, what's going on? She goes, well, today's my last day. I said, what's happening? She said, well, her boss, Malcolm, and Malcolm is mad. Let me tell you already. That guy is mad. Malcolm is... Listen, you see this contract that I have? There are more mad people than there are sane people. That's what I'm going to just tell you. And I know Malcolm is mad because I've observed him. I've been observing. I've had no interaction with him. I've just observed him. And I've seen the way he behaves in meetings. Listen, I've been in this industry this year, 8 years. There's nothing that I haven't seen. I know how finance people operate. I know their drivers. I know their motivations. I know how to manage stakeholders. But this particular guy, Malcolm, is just a busybody and he's a lick ass. He's always licking anybody's ass. He can lick ass. Mavis said to me that when Malcolm found out that he is more senior than her, he started to send her quite passive aggressive emails. And the last straw that broke the camel's back was when he sent her in an email. He said, if I knew I was more senior than you, I would have micromanaged you from the beginning. He wrote it down in an email. When I tell you these people are Raz, you think I'm joking. These people where I work are Raz. I have never worked anywhere where somebody basically tells somebody how they're going to bully them, because that's exactly what he did. So when she read that, she was like, no, I quit. I ain't got time for this. So I said, Mavis, why are you telling me this? She said, oh, because I know we meet once a month to go over the financials of your contract, but I'm not going to be doing it from here on in. I said, Mavis, I get it. You know, somebody in your industry is booming. I have friends who are in your industry, so I know this. But you do realise that in leaving, i.e. you're not giving notice, you just say, I'm off. You know, anywhere you go, you will meet many more devils of Malcolm. You will meet many more of them. So you have to find a way to navigate somebody like him so that you're not moving from one job to another, because that goes to tell me that you ain't going to be anywhere for long. You've only been here a few months. She said that, she knows that it's going to bring out the ugly side of her and she's not ready to do it. I said, no problem. I said, but one thing that you've done that's very good. She said, what? I said, well, Malcolm has shown a propensity for madness. So this email that you forwarded to me, I will keep it in case he's mad and I'll have to show a pattern of behavior. She laughed. She said, you know, I've really, really come to respect you. I said, sorry. She said, well, you know, I didn't have much respect for anybody on this project because people on this project, I think they think they're better than what they are, but you're actually the real deal. And you are really, really good at your job. And even though when I first met you, I wasn't very nice, it wasn't personal. And anybody that I end up working with that maybe works in commercial contract management, I definitely will treat them better than our first encounter. I said, no problem. Mavis, I wish you all the best. She goes, can we swap numbers? I said, of course. Guys, I gave her my work number. That's not my real number. Yeah, I gave her my work number. Why am I giving her my personal mobile number? What am I doing with her? No, I gave her my work number, but she thinks it's my real number. Yes, you heard me. That's what I did. I don't owe her anything. And that's not the type of friend I would like to keep. I really believe that Mavis was my test. I hadn't been in the organisation long when she made the comment that she did. And to be honest, if provocation had a picture beside it, it would be Mavis. And I could have got into a whole showdown with her. It would have ended up in an argument, right? If I met her where she was. If I was 20-year-old Toya, it would have been an argument. But I know very well that, number one, you know, sometimes people's issue is not necessarily directly you. Sometimes also you manifest something in them that maybe they're not comfortable with. Or also as well, maybe I'm just, as she said it, you know, I'm from a department that typically gives her a tough time. So for her, I represent that department and it's not about me. It's about the department. But this is what I say to you. You know, it's great when we go into organisations and we see fellow black women, but you need to do your assessment real quickly, whether this is a real kind of black woman that is woke. And I use that word very loosely, But in kind of explaining what I mean is, when I tell you not all skin folk is kinfolk, just because somebody is black doesn't mean they get it or they're on code. Some black people in the world of work are just not on code, or they just don't get it. They don't understand that we have to navigate uniquely. There is no universal approach to navigating as a black woman. You just have to be very unique in what you do. You have to be very intentional. You have to understand what your purpose is there. You have to project manage your career. And it is also, from my perspective, very frustrating that you almost have to be strategic all the time. That could be really exhausting. And I'm not sitting here saying it isn't. It bloody well is. But I'm taking some of the stress and the exhaustion out of it, right? When I come here and I share my stories, when I come here and I give you the tools to navigate, and I use myself as an example because I haven't always got it right. We still have a podcast to talk about Toya in her 20s because I often thought I was in EastEnders and I was always doing one dramatic exits from organizations and moving crazy until I realized that that's just not the way. That's not sustainable. And don't get it twisted. You guys know very well, I'm going to put people in their places, but I'm going to understand who, what, and why. Who is it that I'm putting in their place? Who is it that I'm having to navigate? Why am I navigating them and what I'm trying to get out of them? If I allowed this woman to pick a fight with me, I would have to still meet with her every month because she's my finance business partner. And I know finances is not my bag. When it comes to contracts, it's not my bag. So I'm going to have to lean on her. So why would I make her an enemy? Why? I don't need to make her an enemy. At the same time, there was a lesson in it for me to learn as well. Every so often, I do definitely feel as though I am tested at work. I'm tested in my ability to, have a bit more foresight, my ability to remain professional, and my ability to often have to police my reactions. And I say this because if I stay true to who I am, I would always, every day, every minute, be putting people in their place. But you have to be strategic. Am I putting this person in their place because my ego is bruised? Or am I putting this person in their place because actually, in order for me to survive here, I'm going to have to let this person know what's up? And making that differentiation is so important. Understanding which battles you're going to take, which one are you going to attend, is equally important. Don't get it twisted. You guys have heard me here before where I've had to come up on the phone and bad people up. I've had to do it. But equally, I weigh it up. And this is why I say that you have to apply logic and emotions has to be secondary. And it's very difficult because it's unnatural, right? Our emotions are always normally at the forefront. And in, taking a step back and really thinking about what you're doing will help you and guide you as you navigate the world of work. And I've always said, there's been times when I'm like, you know what, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. And everybody has their limits. I have my limit. And I'm very happy to sit here and say that no organisation has hit my limit because I've always known what I'm there for. And once my assignment or my ministry in a workplace is complete, I'll get the fuck out. I ain't got no reason to stay longer than I need to. I think what tends to happen is if you've decided that you're going to be in an organisation for 5 years, and sometimes you don't always know it, right? You end up being there. You become invested. Some people really want to be lifers in organisations. They become invested. Their life becomes very intrinsic to their work. And that creates a problem. And I'm not going to lie to you. It creates a problem. Now, I've got friends who have been in organisations for a really long time. But they're still very strategic and on their approach. And I always check them all the time. And I say, what are you trying to accomplish here? What are you trying to get? And I've got one friend, and she doesn't mind me saying this, is that she's a lifer. She just wants to go to work and get paid. She's not interested in anything. She doesn't want, when I say anything, she's not interested in the strategy. But I said to her, there's going to come a point where you're going to have to, because they'll make you very well redundant like they'll do anyone else. They don't care about your loyalty to them. You're an employment number. And I think she later realised that when she went through a restructure and she became very intentional about keeping her job. And she says, Toya, what do I need to do to keep my job? Because that's all I'm trying to do. And I helped her to upskill. I gave her the advice, and there were certain things and there's certain battles that she had to attend. And there were certain things where she had to be a bit more strategic. And now, she's been in her organization a long while, and that's kind of where she wants to stay. And that was the right move for her. But I think, for me personally, I'm not that way. I'm not a lifer. Yeah, I only do life with my partner. I'm not doing life with an organization. And there is a bigger picture for me as well, I know what I'm trying to achieve in my career. And once I've hit it, there's other challenges that, for me, I think will help with my development. And I definitely know that work provides content for the Toya Talks platform. And also as well, it gives me the opportunity to continue to develop as a commercial contract consultant. And I love what I do for a living, but it's not a career path that defines me. And I know that part of my career is the ministry of the Toya Talks podcast. And I always say, when I take breaks from my career, or, I definitely feel like it gives me content, right? And also as well, I think the reality of what the world of work is like is when you're in it, And whilst I can tell you about all the things I've been through in the workplace, we are in a really unique situation, right? Where we're in a pandemic, and to be working in a pandemic and understanding how the commercial space is navigating and existing is very different to how work was 2 years ago. So to be in it is very, for me, quite important. But it's my career does not define me. Whew, guys, diplomacy. Diplomacy professor. I'm not even joking. I feel like once you graduate from the Toya Talks platform, we need to give out certificates. Do you? And the thing is, I do think you graduate, because I think that you will build the skills and you'll be able to rely on the platform and go back on the podcast and hopefully at some point have the book, and for me, I just want to make our experience as Black women in the world of work easier, healthier, strategic, and more intentional. There's a lot of people that work in my organization and they're not intentional about why they're here. And it makes it difficult to then deal with difficult situations because there's no incentive. So I'm asking you guys to find your incentive. I'm asking you guys to deal with your career like it's a project. And I'm asking you guys to be the subject matter of what you do, because that is your leverage. That is going to help you in a negotiation about salary. It will help you in a negotiation about job title. And equally, it will help you to sustain and keep your role. That's part of it as well, is the leverage. Are you the single point of failure? Are you the subject matter expert? Do you know more than your boss? These are all questions I ask, and I've asked in several episodes of the Toya Talks podcast, and I ask myself, do you ask yourself those questions as well? As I mentioned earlier on in the podcast, there were loads and loads of dilemmas, and I've taken a few of them and I'm going to read them. Be rest assured that if your dilemma is not read in this episode, I will read it out in the next episode. And if you have sent me a dilemma and I've asked you certain questions, can you please respond to those questions, because it will help me guide how to advise you and obviously how to best get you your intended solution or situation or what it is that you're trying to achieve. So let's move on to the dilemma section of the Toya Talks podcast. Dear Toya, I would firstly like to thank you for your amazing and impactful platform. As the eldest child in an African home and a first-generation academic, it is nice to engage with your content and feel as though you are a big sister guiding me with tips and tricks on various aspects of life. Whilst listening to your latest podcast on having a poverty mindset, I was triggered and acknowledged that I battle with a sense of gratitude for being seen in white spaces as well. I am currently and she gives her job title, but I don't want to say. And my main duties are, and again, I don't want to say what her main duties are. This is an opportunity that was given to me after a classmate interning there at the time saw my potential, as I doubled the followers of my student organization's Instagram account and tripled their engagement in my role as head of marketing. In this role, I have built relationships and collaborated with my university, and then she's given a list of her other collaborations. With the global company not doing anything to recognise Black History Month and hearing the frustrations of other Black colleagues, I see that there is a gap to be filled here in terms of inclusion and diversity. My internship started in November 2020 and ends in November 2021. I have already expressed my intentions to stay in a communications role, but would like to make a true impact, even if that is not the case. Therefore, my questions to you are, how do I make the most of this internship so I can work on my leverage for the future? And would you advise staying in a company and helping to tackle the lack of diversity? I look forward to hearing your response and wish you a lovely day. So firstly, her first question is, how do I make the most of this internship so I can work on my leverage for the future? I guess the question that you need to ask yourself is what you're trying to gain from this internship. What is your plan? You know, I tell you guys all the time to deal with your career like it's a project. So deal with it like it's a project. What is your goal? What are you trying to achieve here? What are you trying to gain? You know, if you're telling me that you're interested in diversity and inclusion, have you kind of, you know, if they don't have it there, have you opened up that dialogue to be able to add or impart some of your knowledge to be able to create that? Maybe you can end up creating a role for yourself. And I think this is what we don't realize. You know, some roles aren't there. They just don't exist because nobody is at the forefront to encourage its creation. And if you know that this is going to add to your career or it's going to add to you in some way, you lose nothing in suggesting it. So for me, I feel like, you know, to get them, I've never done an internship, but I would think that to get the most of an internship, it is having a plan, but more importantly, asking yourself, how best does this internship serve me? I think when you ask yourself that question, the plan of how you achieve the best out of it will come. And I think also as well to remember, you know, have you ever considered maybe, you know, or is it a consideration of yours as part of your project plan for your career to get a perm role in this internship? Have you explored that possibility? Who have you made alliances with within that organisation? Who is influential within the organisation that you've aligned yourself with to open that dialogue of communication? Your second question is, would you advise staying in a company and helping to tackle the lack of diversity? Well, it depends on what the plan is for that organisation. Is diversity and inclusion something that is important to them as an organisation? Would I stay to do it? It depends in how staying in that organisation also serves my career. My thing is, you know, what you don't want to be is somebody who occupies a role, but they're really not actually contributing to the success of that role. So you would have to assess how important diversity and inclusion is in your organisation and how committed they are to turning it around. Like, if diversity and inclusion isn't something that is encouraged, what are the organisation doing? Are they putting money into, you know, inclusion and diversity? Are they actually making policy changes? Are they educating staff? Are they educating their employees to be able to achieve diversity and inclusion? That's how I'd make that assessment. And if the answer is yes, then I would ask, if I stay in this role, how much of a change will I be able to make? Will this particular organisation actually give me the backing and support I need to be able to make a change here in relation to diversity? And asking yourself, what does diversity look like now, and what is their strategic roadmap for diversity? And we need to talk about tangible things here that can actually be achieved. And what do you need to be able to achieve it? Do you need stakeholder buy-in? Is there a director who is actually the sponsor of diversity within your organisation? And have an open and frank dialogue about what good looks like, what best practice looks like, what does education look like, and how frequently are they going to empower you to advise, influence and enforce diversity within the organisation? Because without those things, darling, you can have a role and you could just fill a position but have no influence, and that's not what you want if you really want to make a change in your organisation. So hopefully that helps. And now we are moving on to the next dilemma. So, hi Toya, I value you and your work in your platform. I have shared it to others so that others can use your resources that you offer. She said that she purchased a masterclass and could she have a pro forma CV. So as part of the Toya Talks CV masterclass, I have pro forma CVs. So if you purchase it, the masterclass, you go through the masterclass and everything, then you can send an email to hello@toyatalks.com and you'll be sent the pro formas, and it basically gives you the opportunity to actually build your CV using the pro forma, the tips, advice and everything that I give you from the masterclass. And to be honest with you, the feedback that I've got is absolutely amazing, as I've previously stated. But she has a further question, and her question is, I also have a query. Where can I find free or affordable general or work-related legal advice? And that's her first question. So Google is your best friend. Personally, for me, I don't recommend legal, like lawyers and stuff like that, because I know my friends as lawyers, right? And I know the law really well. So I know if I'm going to get advice from them, how I best position it to get that. But I think if somebody asked me to recommend like a legal advisor or something, I would always ask you to go on social media. Go on to Google and search and have a look. And, when you talk about legal advice, there's different areas of law that people get advice in. So you've got criminal law, civil aspects of law, you've got personal injury. So it's about looking, have a look in your area as well, and reading some of the reviews that people leave. Like, it's so important, and it will give you and paint a picture of kind of the legal advisor that you're getting advice from. I would also say you need to identify in what area. Law is huge. And your second question is, she goes, if I feel like I need legal support but I cannot pay a lot, could you tell me what resources have you used before? Well, this is the point. Like, when it comes to law, I'm quite well versed, right? I've got a master's in law. So I kind of know, if I was looking for legal advice, say in, I don't know, intellectual property, I would look in my area. I would definitely find what aspect of intellectual property, and then I would go ahead and Google, and I would do some research, like sit down, do some tangible research, and then read reviews, go onto company websites, see how, they present their organization, read about some of the lawyers and the partners, and then I would intuition as well. Like I know, but I think, I have the advantage of being in law, so I know what I'm looking for, but that would be a starting point. So, our next dilemma: should I stay or should I go? Hi Toya, I hope you're well. I just want to firstly start by saying thank you. You give so much of yourself to help others, and I pray God continues to bless you with abundance. Keep thriving. I have a dilemma I was hoping you could help me with. I started a public sector role fresh out of uni. In this role, I listened to your advice and ensured that I became the subject matter expert and the single point of failure. However, fast forward almost 2 years later and things have moved around. My manager has gotten another job in another department. Before she left, I saw a role open up for our team, so I negotiated myself into the role. This was back in December 2020. Following your advice, I started project planning my career and setting out my career goals. I'm treating this new role as a sub-project and laid out my personal aims and outcomes. Even though this role is paying a little lesser than it should be compared to the market, it's in the public sector, so it feels more secure right now. And there are skills I can learn that will be useful for my career. Okay, we're going to come back to that. However, finally, at the end of January, my manager told us who her replacement would be and vaguely added, his management style is very different to mine. Her style wasn't great. She lacked communication skills. Laugh out loud. It's now the end of February and there's no communication about anything to do with our team or this new manager. Most of my team have jumped ship and it's just 2 of us left waiting for this new manager to arrive. We've had nothing, We've had nothing to be working project-wise because our team's responsibilities have changed and the way we work will depend on the direction and strategy the new manager wants us to go with. I've been proactive and used this time to learn and take courses, and it's been 2 months of waiting. It's getting tedious and I feel like I'm wasting time. Do you think I should jump ship too and find other opportunities or sit tight? Also, I'm still living at home with my parents and have been itching to move out. To say it's a toxic household is an understatement. My current salary isn't enough to move out or in a place like London. So this is also another added issue on my mind. I currently don't have any friends available to move in with, so I have to move alone. I really appreciate you taking the time to read this, and I look forward to hearing from you. So, okay, so first of all, whilst you have the negotiation masterclass, there should be no reason that you're taking a job that's lesser paid than the market. I give enough advice and I give you enough tangible tools for you to negotiate. Whether you work in the public and private sector, I've worked in the public sector for several years and I've been able to negotiate. When you have a salary bracket, as I discuss on the negotiation masterclass, that is a bracket of negotiation. If you're going to take any type of promotion, it should never be lower than market rate. Otherwise, you're underselling yourself and you're undervaluing yourself. Remember the episode, Poverty Mindset? Yep. You just because, it's almost like you're grateful for the role. So the gratitude is about the role, but then you're so grateful about the role, which is a promotion, but the salary doesn't reflect the market rate. Is that really a promotion? Or have you been promoted in name? But when it comes to the monetary value of that role, you've undervalued yourself and therefore you're not getting paid the market rate. That is a promotion, yes, but not a financial one. I believe in financial promotion. That's the first thing. So your question you asked me is, should you jump ship? Now, my question to you is, if you are dealing with your career and this particular job like it's a sub-project, you should be able to answer your own question. It seems to me, based on what you're writing here, that you are kind of getting disillusioned, but the only thing that's keeping you there is the money. But the money's not enough for you to move out because your current condition is not tenable anymore. So my question to you is, why are you not looking on the market for those roles in maybe your field or, where you're a subject matter expert of, so that you can get a market rate or above to put you in a financial position where you are able to move out or make financial decisions? I think that you need to ask yourself, as part of your sub-project, have you reached the end of your assignment in this organisation? And when I say assignment, have you reached the end of what you're trying to achieve here? Is it time to move on? And that, my dear, is a question for you. If you've stopped learning, gaining and adding to your skill set, if you are not adding to your leverage in an organisation, if you have put in the work and you've got everything you need out of it, my question to you is, what else is left to achieve there? And if the answer is nothing, then you need to start looking on the market and start having interviews. And I definitely think that you need to challenge yourself in terms of the roles that you're going for, in terms of the salary. You should not be in a position where you're not earning market value, if not above market rate. Not when you have the Toya Talks platform and the negotiation masterclass, the CV masterclass, and all the other masterclasses I provide you as tools to be able to be successful in the world of work. So that's the advice that I would give you. Moving on to the next dilemma. Yes, there's more. Okay, undermining a junior staff member in front of the board. Wow. Hi, Toya. I hope you're well. While sending this email, I realised what a privilege it is to be able to contact someone with your wisdom and experience with a work dilemma, and I would like to donate $30 towards a fellow listener without the means to access one of your masterclasses. Please advise on how I can make this payment. Oh my God, that is amazing. Wow. Okay, guys. So anybody who wants to access one of the Toya Talks masterclasses on toyatalks.com, we have a Black Queen who wants to gift somebody a masterclass. So I will get in contact with you with how you are able to do that. And if that is you, somebody who wants to access the masterclass but you're not in the financial position to do so, please email hello@toyatalks.com. No judgment, nothing. I will just give you access to a masterclass of your choice. On to my dilemma. As part of my role, papers for board meetings are sent to my department to review and approve before the papers are sent to the board. Where a paper is not available with the rest of the papers, a comment is included in the pack of papers to advise that the specific paper will be circulated separately. There is a PA to a very senior person in the organisation who, to be honest, sticks her nose into everything, and my manager has had to push her back on numerous occasions. She advised that one of the papers would not be ready on time and that she would send it to my manager the next day, as I would be on annual leave for the rest of my week. So my manager could share with the board, so I sent the pack as it was with the note within it that an additional paper would be circulated separately. After I had logged off, she emailed the board later that evening with the additional paper with the wording, "Please find attached the paper," which was not included in the pack that Mandy, we're going to call her, sent, indicating that I had made a mistake when the agreement was that she would send the paper to my manager, who would then circulate it. I was so angry, as not only did she breach protocol, as individuals never send papers to the board, they must come from my department, but what she did was an attempt to undermine me as a junior black woman in the view of the most senior people in the company. My manager will be away for the next 3 weeks, so she will not be able to address the PA until then. Is there anything you recommend I do in the meantime? I was thinking of perhaps sending her an email to reiterate the process of dealing with board members. Also, she's a white African. Oh, okay. Thank you for reading. Do you know what I would do? I would email this PA with your manager on copy, and I would say to her, to the words of the effect of, "Dear," what are we going to call her? "Dear Rachel, on so-and-so date, I had made it clear that," and you say what happened. "It has come to my attention that in my absence, you did XYZ. I would just like to reiterate what the process is, in that my department is in charge of sending out the papers to the board. And in not following protocol, you attempted to da-da-da-da. I would like to just reiterate the process. And if you have any concerns about the process or you would like to make suggestions in improving the process, please can you speak with my manager? I look forward to working with you collaboratively in the future." Full stop. That's how I deal with that bitch. I mean, that's how I deal with her. That's how I would deal with her. And can I just say something? My experience of white Africans, especially like South Africans, has not been good, because they see themselves as the elite Africans. And I don't know how they could be an elite African because they didn't originate from Africa, but that's another story for another day. So that's how I would deal with that. I'd keep it short, sweet, and I wouldn't get into too much to-ing and fro-in. And for me personally, it's not about whether she acknowledges the email. It's creating an audit trail so that your boss can see that this girl breached protocol, and you and I know it's to undermine you, but what she really did is undermine the process. So you're just reiterating the process to her, for the avoidance of doubt. Okay then. So we have another dilemma. Good afternoon, Toya. I trust you are well. I want to thank you again for helping me draft the email to my boss, and thank you again for doing the Lord's work. You truly are a gem in the black community. So this email is from a young black lady, and I read her dilemma out. Her boss was bullying her, and I was on Clubhouse, in a room in Clubhouse, and she shared her story, and then I came onto the podcast, shared her story, and dictated a letter that she should send to her boss. Her boss basically shouts at her, demeans her. Her workload is absolutely crazy, and she's on probation. And although she didn't want to broach the subject of probation in dictating the letter that she should send to her boss, it was to protect her probation. So yes, I remember her and I remember her name, and I did have a glance at this email before I read it out. I just wanted to share an update with you. Upon drafting the letter and sending it to my boss, he has said he has not received it yet. I checked my emails and it went to an old account he had, which has been subsequently closed down. This means I have no evidence of sending it. Fast forward to now. Ever since I had the conversation with him, we only had a catch-up once. I continued with my work, and now I have found out that they have extended my probation for another 3 months. I told you. I knew it. Do you know what? This young lady, I told her, I knew that he was going to do this. And this is why I wanted her to address the probation in the letter. And on Clubhouse, she wasn't comfortable with doing that. And I said to her, you need to protect your probation and you need to manage it. Now, I'm going to continue reading this dilemma, but darling, this is what I'm going to say to you. when you sent the email, you should have followed up a few days later, because ultimately, remember, part of that email was putting in checkpoints, right? So you can't get to your probation, then he says he didn't get the email. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? If you had followed up with putting time in his diary and things like that, you would have been able to identify that the email didn't get to him. But we're not here to do the blaming thing. But in terms of managing, like when I say managing your probation, managing your career, it's practical, you know? It's practical. It's literally taking the donkey to the water and telling the donkey, drink the Ras mineral. It is water. You need it for sustenance. You literally have to do that, because if you leave anything, no matter how minor, to a manager, my darling, they don't owe you shit. They ain't gonna do shit. They'll just sit there. And unfortunately, you send the email to the wrong email box. He's done exactly what I thought they were gonna do to you. If you had sent the email and he'd received it, I promise you, you wouldn't be in probation or extended probation. You wouldn't, 100%. Because what you would have done is you put him on a tightrope, and you would have put it on Front Street and put the onus on him to help you pass your probation by putting those checkpoints in. Anyway, let's read on. Darling. Honestly, Toya, I am distraught and I don't know what to do. He said he's extending it because I am not up to the standard he wants. They even disrespected my time from more than an hour waiting whilst he took numerous calls during our meeting. This meant we had not come to a resolution over the outcome of the meeting. I asked the HR and she said they will Skype me yesterday. This did not happen. Should I resend the email again to the correct address and also book a meeting with him and HR? Please advise. I also want to purchase your CV, salary negotiations and interview masterclasses, but not sure which would be most appropriate. If you want any further clarifications, please feel free to reach out to me. Yours, a saddened black woman. Woo! This is a big one. Hell, this is a big one, because I think the bit that I know that's upsetting this black queen is if she had sent the initial email and it hit his inbox, the correct inbox, she wouldn't be in this situation. She knows it. Do you want me to be honest with you? You need to start looking in the job market. They've extended your probation. So if you don't pass the extension, they can terminate. So you're in a very precarious situation. Yeah? L's are for learning lessons. This is your learning lesson, my dear. In your career, you will have to carry a couple of L's. Darling, my shoulders are full with the L's I carried in my 20s. This is yours. So if you want me to give you advice, frankly, you need to start looking on the market and seeing what your industry is saying, or whatever industry that you're in. I would suggest that you get the CV masterclass, because you need to update your CV and you need to start patterning your CV, because one thing you don't want is they don't extend your probation and you don't pass your probation, and then they terminate. So when a prospective employer is now looking for a reference, they will ask on your reference, why did the person leave? And an organization is well entitled to say did not pass your probation, because that's true. So my advice to you is to start looking on the job market. Yeah? Now, in terms of the role that you're in now, this is what I would do if I was you. I would email your boss with HR on copy. And I would say something to the effect of, dear, what's his name? Graham, or whatever his name is. Further to our meeting on so-and-so date, you concluded that the appropriate action as a response to my probation period is to extend my probation period because you believe that I'm not up to standard. In order for me to pass the probation period effectively, it would be useful to find out what it is that I would need to do to pass. For example, what are the standards that you are expecting of me? How will you support me to enable me to pass my probation? And also, I would request that we have bi-weekly check-ins to check the progress of this probation extension. I am invested in my career enough to put in the time and the work required to be able to pass my probation. And I would request any support or assistance you could provide me to enable me to pass my probation. I look forward to hearing from you. The reason why you're sending that, because you're making him culpable and you're making him responsible for a plan of action to support you to pass your probation, but you do not have leverage. You have none. Because if you had sent that email to him that ended up in the wrong mailbox or his old mailbox, and they extended your probation, we could have dealt with this differently, because then it would be on him to prove that he supported you to pass your probation in the first place. Whereas now he doesn't owe it to you. And that is what puts you in a very, very fragile situation. So this is me being completely honest, because I've been in a situation before, previously, I say a couple of years ago, but in my 20s actually, where my probation was extended. And the best thing I ever did is look for a new job, because there was no real support to pass. I was bullied, and it made me feel like anything I did would never be right. And they didn't give me the support, and they made it clear they weren't willing to give me the support that I needed to pass. But the reason why they were extending it is because obviously they need to start provisioning how they're going to now replace me. It gives them enough time to start recruiting, or at least getting CVs in. Yeah, they don't necessarily have to advertise the role as the job title that you have. They can name it a different title just to get CVs. Yes, it's been done before. I've experienced that before. So that tells me, and what I learned from that is, an extension of a probation period is no confirmation of a role. So if you're not confirming my role, then I need to start looking at the market and seeing what opportunities are out there so that I can jump ship if I have to. And you will know quite quickly if you're going to pass this extension. And I suggest that if they confirm to you verbally that you haven't passed, that you resign before they put it in writing, so that it looks like you resign before they put it in writing, if that makes sense. You're going to have to manage this. And this has to be your learning lesson. The learning lesson here is, when you send an email to your boss or whatever, you put a read receipt. And maybe I should have told you to put a read receipt, but it does go without saying that if you're going to send an email of this magnitude, that you put a read receipt in. And if you don't put a read receipt in, fine, but you have to follow up. Because if you sent a follow-up email and didn't hear anything, I'm sure you could have then put a meeting in his diary. Do you understand? And then you would have realised, shit, he hasn't got my email. And you could have managed that before you got to a point where they're extending your probation. And this is what I mean about being proactive. Sometimes it requires you to really kind of put that meeting in, be intentional about what you're doing. Instantaneous communication is mad. And it's unfortunate, and it was a mistake on your side. You didn't know that his old account had closed down, but in resending that email, it's superfluous now, because the whole reason why we drafted that email initially is to safeguard your probation. Now your probation has been extended. I mean, that email that I dictated, the first one that I did before, is redundant. So I suggest this second email that I've asked you to do is a consideration. But yeah, that is kind of, if I was in your situation, I've advised you the way I would deal with it. And I hope all of us can learn from that as well. Very important. Okay, so the next dilemma is CV Masterclass Pro Format Request. Hello, Toya. I just completed the CV Masterclass, and 1, I would like to confirm the quality and magnificence of the content. I updated a lot and learned so much. Next stop, Negotiation Masterclass. Number 2, I would like to ask, what does a generic CV look like? Is it a CV without buzzwords? My past career isn't related to the current one, and I would like to combine them in the future. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your knowledge through your magnificent podcast. Kind regards. So a generic CV still has buzzwords because, okay, so let me give you an example. I have a generic CV where it is a commercial contract consultant lead or commercial contract consultant, but it's generic. So I haven't tailored it towards a certain industry, but there's still buzzwords. So there are role-specific buzzwords. So for me, a role-specific buzzword is negotiation, mitigation, risk mitigation. It is a supplier management. It is contract review. It is contract drafting. It is business case approval. So those are generic words to the job title. That's a generic CV, for example, with specific buzzwords to a job title. but it's still not targeted towards a specific industry. So for instance, oh God, I don't want to give it away. So I have a leaning towards a certain industry. So my CV is tailored towards that, i.e., you know, I highlight certain things, I use certain buzzwords for that particular industry, but it's industry specific. So I think that to answer your question is you can still have a generic CV, but the job title has to allude to some buzzwords and you should know what they are. So for instance, my friend that is a finance business partner, she does management accountant. She does management accounting. So those things would be generic. So I think that it's important to have buzzwords anyway, especially because organizations use kind of software as well sometimes to shortlist CVs. So it's really important that even though you're combining two careers or you have a past career that isn't related to the current one, there should be some cross-function. There should be some cross-alignment of, you know, things that you did in both roles. So is it research? Is it, I don't know, reviewing, you know, do you understand what I mean? So I think that you should always have buzzwords, and I think it's important for you to know and understand what those buzzwords are. And in combining two roles into one for the future, there has to be some cross-varied skills that you're able to use in both roles. So those things should go on your CV as well. And if you haven't been sent a pro forma, can you let me know? Because I'm assuming my assistant has sent it to you. I'll send it to you anyway, just in case she hasn't, because she might have just left it for me to do. Okay. So that is all the dilemmas for this week. I'm really conscious of how long this podcast is. But some of you do tell me off if the podcast is like 30 minutes, which it isn't really usually 30 minutes. But I know how much you guys love the dilemmas because you learn from them. And that's why I encourage people to, you know, send in their dilemmas. I read them out. I give you advice and I'm honest, open and fair. And if you have a work-related dilemma that you want me to read out on the Toya Talks podcast and advise you on here on the podcast, please email hello@toyatalks.com. If you have a friend or a friend of a friend, or you know someone's going through something at work and you want to be able to advise them in the right way, why don't you email on their behalf, hello@toyatalks.com. Keep it brief, punchy, straight to the point. And obviously in the subject box, just write what the dilemma is, like a little headline or something. And that really helps me out. You guys are dope. I have seen the downloads for the poverty mindset episode of the Toya Talks podcast, and it's over 10,000 downloads, which is amazing in its first week. And I'm really, really, really proud. So thank you guys so much. I don't know about you guys, but you see me next week. Is it Sunday or Monday? I'm busy. No one ring me. No one text me, because Meghan and Harry are sitting down with Auntie Oprah, and the tea doesn't need a saucer because it's piping hot. It's scalding. We must hear the truth. You know Harry. You know one thing I love about Harry? Everyone's like, oh, Harry's the one that is, you know, they always made it sound like he was like the radical one, or he was like the, you know, like the rule breaker. Nah, man, Harry is on job. He is doing also the Lord's work. The road of honesty is the road that he's walking on. And I respect him so much because every decision he's made is to protect his family. He's learned from the loss of his mother, and he is committed to making sure that he protects his wife. And Meghan is, I think, amazing for him because I think they complement each other. And I think they highlight everything that's wrong with the UK press in terms of racism, discrimination, bullying. And to be honest with you, the press have a lot to answer for. They're responsible for a lot. And whether people want to admit it or not, Harry blames the press for the death of his mother, or at least partly holds them responsible. And I can't imagine the level of trauma he went through, he goes through, or he has been through. And to hear him and Meghan speak with such honesty, and they didn't go to anybody else but Auntie Oprah. I'm sorry. If anybody's looking for a message, there's a message to be received, and I will receive it on a Sunday, Monday. I'm telling you, I can't wait. Hey! And you know something? Let us stretch our hands and ask for the blood of Jesus to cover Meghan, Harry, and their family. Because I don't want to hear story. I don't want to hear story. You understand? Hey! So me, I don't know what you guys are going to be doing. Me, I'm going to be tuned in there. Also as well, I want to let everybody know I'm going on the Invisalign diet. Yeah, you heard me. Anybody that knows me know I love food. And I need to get Invisalign for my teeth. So everyone thinks my teeth is perfect, but they're not. But I also heard that Invisalign helps you lose weight because you have to keep them in your mouth for, I think it's like 23 hours a day. And every time you want to eat, you have to take them out. So it's a lot of effort. So it means that you end up losing weight. Listen, any means possible, any means necessary, without me having to go under the knife, honey. You heard me. Oh my God, how can I forget? Guys, I need to read some of the DMs that I've gotten. Oh my God, Toya, how can you forget? Sorry, guys. Before we draw to a close, let's read some of these DMs. Okay. Sis, I even have a question. I had been in my new role, career change, newly qualified for 15 months before I went on maternity leave. My manager reached out and said there are open positions for there's open applications for senior positions. I took a step back and didn't apply as I have been on maternity leave for 6 months now and thought I won't stand a chance, plus the short time frame to apply and interview. I will apply for the next round if it comes out before I'm due to return. Surely being in the role for a short period of time shouldn't matter, right? Still listening to your podcasts from the beginning, so you may have touched on this in a specific one already. Girl, you need to listen to Poverty Mindset episode because that's crazy. Your manager reached out to you and told you that you should apply for one of the open applications for a senior position, and you're questioning the fact that you've been on maternity leave for 6 months as a reason why you shouldn't. The question I need to ask you is, do you really want it? And nobody can want more for you than you want for yourself. And you have to know that you're deserving. And you have to know that at the end of the day, and I've always said this, it doesn't matter if you've been in a role for 6 months. If somebody, and a manager for that matter, is encouraging you to go for a senior role, you need to start seeing yourself in that senior role as well. Hey Toya, how are you doing? I'm listening to your podcast, your latest podcast episode, Poverty Mindset, and I cannot thank you enough. I'm a medical student and I'm still a long way from being a qualified doctor. You always hear the black doctors, especially women, earn a lot less than every other qualified doctor. I'm saying thank you because you're so right about the poverty-minded and the idea of gratitude that they let us in. The story about your friend who's a nurse is so impactful. I'll definitely be taking on the lesson from the podcast and the masterclasses and putting them into action when it's time to. Thank you and God bless. That poverty mindset episode, you guys are really, really, really loving it. And I really, really love delivering it. Okay, guys and girls, boys and girls, we got another one. Hi, Toya. I've been meaning to message you for a very long time, but today is today. Let me start by saying this is just to let you know that you are absolutely amazing, a force to be reckoned with, and an absolute inspiration to me and many black women out here. I just finished listening to the Poverty Mindset podcast episode, and I love how you come with facts every single time. I don't know why people are so pressed with black women enjoying after years of toiling. It's really disgusting to see, and I don't care. I love to see it every single time. Every time I see you in your designer and your Versace robe, I can't help but stan and keep stepping on their necks and peppering them. I'm in the broke stage right now, and no one understands how hard it is. I'm in my final year of medical school, praise God. And because I'm not studying in the UK, there is no student loan available, so I basically get whatever my parents can afford to send me monthly. Currently, even have less than £5 in my account. But I have had to manage this for the past 5 years, and it is thanks to God for seeing me through. One more year, and I will be back to the UK to finally start working and making money. If I hear PIM when I start buying my luxury items, because no one was with me in the lowest points. Like you said in the other podcast, at a point you cleaned, but now you are doing well. You are doing so well. You did what you had to do, and glory be to God, you have elevated so much, and it's upwards from here. So black women should enjoy their luxury with their full chest. I also want to thank you for all your gems. I've been following you for the least 3 years, and all my friends and followers know about you because you always speak facts. Thank you so much for all that you do and how you have changed people's lives. I might not be working now, but I'm taking all the info on boundaries and everything else and applying it to my studies and everything so that when I enter that NHS, they can't try me. Also, I have been really looking into specialising in obstetrics. I can't pronounce this word. obstetrics. Guys, my dyslexia I can't pronounce this. And gynecology. Because the treatment of black women in the UK is appalling. I'm hoping I can be another black doctor in the room looking out for my fellow black women. Anyways, sorry for talking your ear off. God bless you and Kay tremendously and have a blessed month. Kind regards. Oh, that's so sweet. Listen, I messaged this lady in her DMs and I said, listen, the broke stage is probably the most humbling stage because you have to, I feel for me anyway, that I had to make the sacrifice and I had to pay my dues to be able to understand where I came from and appreciate the things I have when I'm supposed to get and walk in my purpose and get what I deserve. I think that I definitely know the broke stage all too well. Like, it was tough. And I think in going through what I did, it made me who I am. And it made me very confident when I negotiated, because I knew that I was negotiating from a place of sacrifice and experience. Like, nothing is owed to you. But I believe that negotiation and increasing my earning potential is due to me. And it requires me to be intentional, purposeful, and more importantly, to understand my worth and understand that in knowing what we deserve, we are breaking boundaries and barriers. And that poverty mindset is like a toxic drink that they force black women to drink because they want us to know our place. My place is where God has designated for me. And your place is where God has designated for you. But we have free will and we get to make choices. And unfortunately, some of our black sisters don't make the right choices, to accept crumbs and end up angry because they know that they've made choices that doesn't benefit them and doesn't reflect where they should be. And there are also others that are willing to take the chance and willing to really embody, embrace and accept the Toya Talks platform, because everything I teach you here is so that we can better ourselves, so that we are a force to be reckoned with, and more importantly, so that we can get what we deserve. And that stage, she mentioned here when I spoke about like one of my jobs where I was cleaning, and I spoke about this on my Instagram stories and on Instagram Live. It's, those roles that were like my entry roles into life taught me the discipline I needed. So when I was a cleaner, I learned about teamwork. I learned about discipline, and I learned about the importance of sacrifice. When I worked in Tesco's, anyway, I loved tills anyway. Like when you're younger and you get a till. I always wanted to work behind a till anyway. But in Tesco's, I learned about multitasking because I was also cleaning there too. As well as working in Tesco's, I was cleaning. And I learned about multitasking, and I learned about pride. I had this pride thing, and I felt away. I remembered like feeling away doing it and feeling like, do these people, do you know what I mean? And I realized that actually this is what I have to do to pay my way through my education. This is what I have to do to put food on the table. So it's not about pride, it's about survival. And I learned the importance of showing up for myself. No one's going to work harder for me than me. Do you understand? And when you make these sacrifices, it's like sowing a seed into your life. You're sowing a seed into your career. You will definitely harvest it. It will not be easy, and it may take time, but you will harvest it. And in sharing my story with you and my vulnerability, it's to show you that I started from nothing, and I don't take it for granted, because if you start taking those things for granted, you'll go back to where you started. And I'm not about that. I'm about building. I'm about sharing. I'm about empowering and enriching. And this platform, the Toya Talks platform, gives me the ability to do that. So I'm so grateful for this black woman, this black queen reaching out. And I'm so grateful to all of you. And I don't take this platform for granted at all. And I'm so grateful that it is an intrinsic part of your Tuesdays and your lives. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for listening and engaging on the Toya Talks podcast. So we're going to draw it to a close. If you want to connect with me on social media, My personal Instagram page is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks Instagram page is Toya_Talks. If you want to connect with me on Twitter, it's Toya_W. Snapchat is Toya Washington, all one word. Clubhouse, Toya Washington, all one word. If you are interested in purchasing any of the masterclasses on the toyatalks.com website, we have the CV masterclass, the interview skills masterclass, the negotiation masterclass, the mother and daughter masterclass, and most recently the redundancy masterclass. We have a few more masterclasses that are going to be added to the roster coming up soon, one of which is passing your probation. You guys, I cannot wait to deliver that masterclass to you. It is coming soon. If you have a workplace or work-related dilemma, or maybe a friend has one and you need some advice, do not hesitate to email hello@toyatalks.com. We have some really exciting podcast episodes coming up, and I'm really, really excited to deliver them to you. If you are an avid listener of the Toya Talks podcast and there is a topic that you think that I haven't really spoken about, email hello@toyatalks.com. I'm so excited for all the episodes that are due to come. One of which is about organisation and being able to multitask at work. And that is a form of navigating, because you have to show your organisation, your manager, your team, that you are a safe pair of hands. We're going to talk about it because I've had to do it and I do it really, really well. I'm proud to say I definitely am a safe pair of hands within my industry and what I do for a living. So I'll be sharing that podcast episode with you soon. Have a great week. Have a great day. And thank you so much for joining me. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toya Talks Podcast.